Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and we are here for our second 30-minute live Q&A here on the Wisdom app. Excuse me. Before we get into taking questions, and if you would like to join the broadcast and ask a question, there should be a little button there that says be my guest or join the show or something like that. If you push that, it will let me know that you would like to join, and then I'll patch you in through all of the inner workings of this little app here. But before we do that, I just wanted to do a couple minutes about triangulation. Triangulation is, something a lot of people have heard about. Most people are familiar with it. It is the word used to describe pitting people against each other, creating competition, that kind of a thing. Narcissistic personalities are known for creating triangulation in relationships. So, for example, you might be compared to other people, either positively or negatively. That's something a lot of people don't necessarily realize, is that triangulation isn't necessarily something negative. It isn't always these people are better than you. It can also be you're better than these people. That's also triangulation. All of the manipulation from narcissistic people is ego manipulation, and so that is just another example of that. It makes you feel good, whereas the other type of comparison makes you feel bad. If someone says, you're better than these other people, you're the best girlfriend, boyfriend, child, whatever that I've ever had, that makes you feel really good. And if someone says you're the worst, or these other people know me better than you, or they did more for me than you do, that kind of thing, then that makes you feel bad. It provokes your ego. So triangulation can look like that. It can also look like telling you things that other people have said about you. For example, they might say, oh, well, this person acts like they're your friend, but they said this and that and this about you, or my therapist told me this about you, or my friend said this, or your mom told me, that kind of stuff. That is to sort of turn you against the other person or turn them against you, so that the narcissistic personality can control the situation and the flow of information. So if they are playing both ends against the middle, if they're telling your mom things about you and telling you things about your mom, then the way to keep everybody from talking and to keep everyone turned toward the narcissist is to turn people against each other. So that's an extremely common form of triangulation. Triangulation also occurs in situations where, for example, their attention is turned to something else. So I have even heard of triangulation being created, for example, with someone's phone or with a device or with a show on TV or something like that. You can sometimes hear about pornography being used as triangulation. It's anything that they are using to create the idea that you are not important, that this thing is more important than you, it's better than you, etc., right? Excuse me. So that's a few things about triangulation that people might not necessarily realize. A lot of times people think it's just comparisons, or it's just saying bad things and things like that. It's not. It can occur in a lot of other situations. Triangulation actually can be used as part of love bombing. And as everyone knows who listens to my show, love bombing is part of the idealization phase of the relationship. And so in love bombing, a lot of times you have that kind of stuff where someone says, you're so much better than everybody else, and different things like that. And if you listen to the video that I put up the other day, then you know that in all the phases of this cycle of narcissistic relationships, the narcissistic person is seeing a fantasy of you. So whether they are intentionally creating triangulation or not is hard to say. Probably, for many situations, but also there are some who probably are not. because this is just how they are. Manipulation is their skill set. So it's how they sort of orient to the world. Like, these are the skills that they use. And so that's one of the things. Triangulation, manipulation, idealization, all of these things, that they trigger things inside of you. And what happens with, that's your gut instinct. And what happens with people is that they don't necessarily listen to them. They kind of rationalize it away, or, if you look at a situation and you feel kind of funny about it, but you don't see any reason why you feel funny, like person didn't necessarily do anything wrong. There's not maybe anything that looks off about the situation. A lot of times people will just kind of tell themselves, well, I'm just being paranoid, or I'm worried about this for no reason, and different things like that. Learning to trust your gut instinct is about not doing that, because it triggered something in your mind for a reason, right? So it's very, very important to learn to pay attention to that. And oftentimes people think it's something that they did wrong. Like, oh, I'm sensing some coldness, or I'm sensing there's a problem here, or something's not quite right and I don't know what it is. It must be me. I must have done something wrong. And so, it's very, very common for people to think, well, what if I did this, or what if I had just done that, or what if I just was easier to get along with, or maybe it really is me. Maybe I'm just making a big deal out of nothing. The truth is, you can torture yourself worrying and wondering if you caused the fracturing of the relationship, or if you caused the mistreatment by a narcissistic personality. But, if you look at this objectively, you can see that really doesn't make any sense, because the challenges faced by this type of personality, they're deep-seated and they are really, really hard to address. So these things are not being caused by you or the things that you're doing. So you can't fix a pathological personality structure by being nice to somebody and just doing what they want. And once again, I want to remind you that if you would like to join into the conversation and ask a question, just push that little Be My Guest button. Excuse me. And you can come into the conversation. I see we have a caller. Alrighty, go ahead, push it. Hi, am I speaking with Sheila?
Yes. Can you please tell me more about causing alienation with adult children? That has really hurt me that he did that. It's the one thing that keeps me asking myself, was I really wrong? But he got both daughters on his side. Now, one is severely schizophrenic. She was pretty easy to manipulate, and he's taking care of her and the 4 kids.
Right. You mean her 4 kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, the only thing that makes me feel a little better about myself is the fact that they tell so many lies. If I were so bad, why did both my daughters have to make up lies? Out and out, total made lies.
I think that's a very, very good question. It's a good sort of litmus test. Like, well, if I'm really that bad, and if these things are really so terrible, then why do you have to exaggerate them or just make things up?
That's the one thing that has, I think, kept me these last 3 years since he finally booted me out after 48 years. That's kept me from really healing. I raised these kids full-time, Mom. I raised their children as they came home or the other one went back to school. Everything was buddy-buddy, but I know that my husband would put me down to the girls. I knew that, and he taught them disrespect, and it got worse and worse. But, to make up a story like I was out in the front yard tearing up the photo albums because I was angry, that never happened.
Right.
Threw a brick or a rock through the window of the guy she married. Well, neither one of us wanted her to marry him, and it was a mistake, but nobody did that. I mean, these
Right.
are so concrete, you can't imagine them or exaggerate them.
Right.
So that's the only thing that helps me feel exonerated. I'm not so bad.
That's
Knowing
exactly
if I
right.
was so bad, why can't they tell the truth and have it be bad? But
That's
my
exactly
mind
right.
up on that still.
Well, and what I guess is the thing, and we only have like about 2 more minutes because this has a 5 minute time limit. But for you to think about, and if you want to tell me, is what is the thing about it that's so that you can't get past?
That my daughters could actually abandon me so totally
Right.
for him, knowing what a liar he was, what a cheat, how irresponsible, not
Hmm.
paying the bills, and that he physically abused me.
Yeah.
They know all that. And yet, the way they turned totally against me in the end.
And how much of that, and this is just for you to think about, because what has happened is extremely unfair, and I'm so sorry to hear that. But there's so much of this for them that this is dad saying that. You know what I mean? And for kids, even though they know the reality, our brain tends to tell us, even when we're adults, also that what we see and hear is reality, and he's telling them he's portraying himself as a certain way and different things like that. Those are really, really powerful things.
Yes, but I mean, they're 46 and 49 years old.
Hmm.
These aren't children.
No,
And
no, I know what you mean.
them learned disrespect from Steve all along. It
Yeah.
got worse and worse even as I was raising grandchildren.
And
Yeah.
so for you, the most important thing, and I understand how hurtful this is. I mean, I wish I didn't hear this as often as I do. I really, really do. But for you, the most important thing, I think, is going to be exactly what you said, that you know the truth. And that if the truth were really so bad, then it wouldn't need to be exaggerated. It wouldn't need to be made up. It wouldn't need to be, they would just be able to tell the truth, and that would be bad enough. I think that's a really, really powerful thing that you just said. And I got to tell you, I wish more people looked at it like that because that's really, really important. Does that make sense?
Yes, and you know what? I think just speaking to you, I've been following you for over a year and a half now.
Yes, ma'am.
I think just hearing you kind of reinforces to me I'm not really the bad one. I hate it when my mind goes there.
You know what? And I appreciate so much speaking with you. And one of the things you can do, this is going to cut you off any second, so I want to say thank you so much for talking. One of the things that you can do to sort of address that when that comes up, because our mind does go there. It does happen sometimes. And one of the things we can do is exactly what she was just saying. Remind yourself, like, okay, what's the reality of the situation? Is this the reality of the situation? And a lot of times what we find is no. Because if it's so bad, if what you're doing is the truth, what they're saying, right? If what they're accusing you of is reality, how come it doesn't make any sense? Why doesn't it make any sense? For example, people who are accused constantly of they're being told they're controlling the other person's behavior. You made me do this. I only did this because you made me, or you did that, or blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't really make any sense to people because, they're thinking about it and they're like, well, wait a minute. All I did was ask you what you wanted for dinner. How did that cause you to go crazy and, start breaking things or slam out of the house and say you never want to talk to me again? Like, how did it turn into this? This doesn't make any sense. Or even on a smaller scale than that, I'm using sort of an extreme example. And so whenever you think about it, ask yourself they call them is Socratic questioning, which is where you're kind of saying, how does the evidence point to this? Does it point to this? Does it point to anything else? Does this make any sense? And so using that kind of reality testing is really, really helpful to kind of take a step back from the situation and say, okay, hold on. Stop right there. What is this? What's really going on? Is that what's really happening? A lot of times you will find, especially when you're dealing with narcissistic people, that the answer is no. And I want to remind everybody, if you would like to join in and ask a question, just push the Be My Guest. You don't have to wait for an invitation. You can just push it any old time. But it's very true that this kind of thing gets in your head. It's what our previous caller was just saying. I hate when my mind goes there. It gets in your head. It does. And especially with the ego manipulation involved in these relationships, a lot of time it stays in your head. Like, it just is kind of circling around in there, and it becomes sort of really personalized and internalized as, this is a possible definition of me, or this is a possible reflection of me. And so using sort of what we call the Socratic questioning, the reality testing, to really kind of challenge that, right? And look at it and say, is this something that is true in reality? A lot of times what we find is no. And reality testing is very, very helpful in a lot of these situations. It also helps with addressing cognitive dissonance. Listeners of the show have heard me talk about cognitive dissonance multiple times. And in cognitive dissonance, one of the biggest problems that people are having is what the mind wants to do, or what the mind thinks it should be doing, is at odds with another piece of information or evidence that cannot be denied. And so a lot of times these sort of beliefs are created as bridges between these two things. So it's like, if you have cognitive dissonance over smoking, smoking cigarettes, there's always cognitive dissonance revolved around smoking, because people want to smoke, and they're addicted to smoking, but they also know that smoking is bad for you, and that information cannot be discarded because it can't be denied. Everyone knows that smoking is bad for you. So if you want to keep smoking, then what you're going to have to do is come up with a way to mitigate that information, because the psychological stress created by continuing to smoke will be too much. Every time you would smoke a cigarette, you'd be thinking how horrible this is, and it's so bad for me, and it's going to kill me, and it can it can do all these things. So people come up with ways to sort of mitigate that by saying, well, yeah, okay, smoking causes cancer, but so do a lot of things, or I'm going to quit soon, or I don't smoke that many cigarettes, that kind of thing. So in that way, it makes the psychological stress of engaging in that manageable. Because if that information cannot be mitigated, then the situation is not manageable. So it's a lot of times the same with toxic relationships and belief systems that are created around those. Someone says they love me, but this person also hurts me. So those two pieces of information are in conflict, because if someone says they love you, they shouldn't hurt you. They don't hurt you. When someone says they love you, not on purpose. And if someone hurts you, then they don't love you. These two things are completely in conflict with each other. And so what cognitive dissonance does is it makes it so that these things aren't really contradictory. So, for example, if someone loves you but they hurt you, how can we bridge the gap between these two things? Well, maybe they only do it because they drink, or maybe they do it because they are tired from working all day. Maybe they have a mental illness. Maybe. It becomes all of these things. And so the way you can use reality testing in these situations is to confront those things. Does the fact that someone had a bad day at work does it make it okay for them to be abusive, for them to be nasty, for them to be mean and horrible? Is it mitigating the other information? And the answer is no, it is not. Because that's how reality testing works. You look at the piece of information and you say, is coming to this conclusion reasonable? And if you're just joining us, I want to let everybody know, in order to join the conversation and ask a question, you can push the Be My Guest or join the conversation, whatever the button says, and you can jump right in, and I will patch you into the conversation, and then we can talk for a little while. But that is how reality testing sort of helps you challenge these different things. It's very important. And if you're going to challenge cognitive dissonance, which if you're trying to heal from these relationships or even understand them, you have to be able to do that. It's very, very important to start challenging the different stories and sort of bridges between information that you're coming up with. Because the truth is, most of them don't sort of stand up to the litmus test, right? They really don't. Because if someone had a bad day at work, it's not okay for them to come home and be horrible, even if they did have a bad day at work. There's nothing that's a reasonable reason, a reasonable excuse why you should put up with that. It's just, there is no such thing as that. Now, a lot of times people say, well, yeah, but we need to have compassion and we need to have empathy. And that's absolutely true. But we also need to have compassion and empathy for ourselves. And you're not being compassionate to yourself if you say, well, this person had a bad day, so it's okay that they're treating me this way. No, it's not. It's not okay if they're treating you that way. We have to be adults. We have to control ourselves. If somebody has a lot of trouble controlling themselves, then it's up to them to sort of do something about it, to take steps to rectify that if they need to, speak to somebody, go to anger management, whatever they need to do, right? But it's up to them. And that's the most important thing when learning about these relationships and healing from them and things like that is, what are my responsibilities and what are not? Because taking care of this person's behavior or managing it for them or doing whatever you can to make everything perfect so they have no quote-unquote reason to behave badly or mistreat you or abuse you, that's not your responsibility. And by the way, it doesn't work. Because the truth is, they don't have a reason to abuse you in the first place, and they still are. So, because that's a choice that they're making, they may not realize it's a choice they're making, or they might not know why, but it doesn't matter because it is something that you have no ability to affect. So, very, very important to understand, what do I have the ability to affect? What do I not have the ability to affect? Because, it's right back to what we were saying, where people are being accused of controlling the other person's behavior. I did this because you made me. No, you did it because for whatever reason, that's what you chose to do. I didn't make you. And the reason we know that is because the person had a choice. They didn't have to throw a chair or call you a bad name or hit you physically or leave or run to another partner or another relationship or ghost you to say, whatever they did, they didn't have to do that. I just gave you, 5 things they could have done instead of whatever it was that they did do. Not that any of those are good choices, but I'm just saying there is a choice. They could have sat down and said, hey, you know what, I have a problem with this. Or they could have sat down and said, you know what, this isn't working for me and we just need to end the relationship. So whenever you're being blamed for someone else's behavior in this way, always remember that. It's very, very important. Excuse me. If you'd like to join in the conversation, press the Be My Guest button. We have a couple things going on. This weekend is the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Clinic, and that is going to be on the 18th and the 19th. It's 2 days done virtually over Zoom. There's how many workshops? A lot, like 5 one day and 4 the other day. There's really a lot of them. Sorry, I'm talking to my assistant. She's here with me. There's several workshops. We cover a lot of different stuff: trauma bonds, boundaries, rebuilding trust with yourself, getting to know yourself after abuse, regaining a sense of agency, all kind of different stuff. And so there are still a few spots open in that. We were able to offer 5 spots free in that, thanks to the people who signed up. So very much appreciative of that. Very grateful, and happy holidays to everybody. Thank you so very much. We are going to continue with the live Q&As on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And there is a new sort of support service that we are offering on littleshaman.org, and that is the Sacred Healing Recovery Group. And there are, I think it's 6 support meetings a month. There will be two a week for 2 weeks and one a week thereafter, because we're going to do every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2 Saturdays a month. That way, if someone can't come on Wednesday, they can hopefully attend the one on Saturday. That will also, people who are part of that group will also receive exclusive content, videos and audio and different things like that from me supporting them. And also there is a weekly support email, and we will also be offering some different things in that as well. If you have any suggestions of different things that we can offer in that program, I would love to hear them, because we are always, this is part of an ongoing commitment to sort of reach out and be able to help people who may not be able to book an appointment or attend a workshop. People have crazy schedules with the pandemic. A lot of people financially, it's hit a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So I'm continually trying to reach out. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this live show also as well. Excuse me. So those are some of the things we have coming up. Oh, and membership into the Sacred Healing Recovery Group will also secure you a spot in one workshop that's being held that month, or because it's an ongoing sort of subscription situation, and so there will be a spot secured for you at every workshop going forward. So it's a lot of good stuff. I'm really hoping that it is helpful for people. So like I said, if you have any suggestions about what else we could offer with that, I would absolutely love to hear them. This is going to be posted on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube listening to it, you can go ahead and put your suggestion in the comments below, and there will be a link to all the stuff I'm talking about in the information section of all the YouTube videos. So that's what we have going on right now. Did I forget anything? I have an interview coming up on somebody's podcast, but it's not soon enough for me to mention it yet. But keep an eye out for that. And I really enjoyed speaking with you all today. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, through Skype, worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops, seminars, clinics, and more throughout the year. So if you're interested in seeing what we are running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day. Oh, yeah. Well, you can follow me. I forgot. I'm always used to doing this for YouTube, and so it would be silly for me to say follow me on YouTube when we're already on there. But yes, thank you for reminding me. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, and you can find us on YouTube. As far as I know, I'm the only little shaman on there, so I should be. What's that? Yeah, I'm the first one, so it shouldn't be that hard. The Little Shaman. Hopefully, on Instagram. What is it? The.little.shaman. Yeah, and on Twitter, I don't remember what it is. I never go on there, but I'm on there. So if you want to follow me. Yeah. If you type in the Little Shaman, you will find it. So I hope to see you there, and that's where you can find announcements for all this different stuff, is on the social media in the community tab on YouTube. So as I was saying, may the Great Spirit bless you. Y'all have a beautiful day.